Our brains are wired for survival, but sometimes these ancient instincts misfire. Explore how deeply rooted evolutionary traits secretly power our most common modern phobias. Deep inside your brain exists a sophisticated alarm system that never sleeps. The amygdala is an almond-shaped structure, and this complex network of neurons acts as your personal security team. It scans your surroundings for harm, signaling your heart to beat faster and muscles to tense up instantly. For most, this response is a lifesaver, helping avoid speeding cars or falling objects. However, for those with a phobia, this internal guardian becomes far too protective. It views harmless objects as deadly emergencies. Your body reacts with panic, treating a simple shadow like a monster. Arachnophobia, the intense fear of spiders, is one of the very ancient phobias. Biologically, this fear is actually an evolutionary gift. Thousands of years ago, a single bite from a venomous spider could be fatal. Those who naturally stayed away from dark corners were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Today, your brain might still treat a tiny little house spider like a prehistoric threat. When you see 8 legs moving unpredictably, your visual center sends a high-speed distress signal to your nervous system. Acrophobia goes far beyond the normal caution most people feel when standing near a steep drop. If you struggle with this fear, looking down from a high balcony triggers a physical sensation of vertigo. It feels as though the ground is pulling you toward it, even if a sturdy railing is right there. This phobia connects deeply to your inner ear, which manages your balance. When your eyes see a vast distance but your feet feel a stable surface, sensory confusion creates a terrifying sense of instability. Claustrophobia is the fear of enclosed spaces, like elevators or crowded rooms. For someone with this condition, the fear involves the terrifying possibility of being trapped. When you enter into a small room, your brain might suddenly perceive the walls moving inward. Your chest feels tight, and you frantically look for the nearest exit. This often stems from a lack of control. This feeling of restriction triggers a primitive panic designed to help animals escape predators, reminding us that brains prioritize physical freedom above everything else for survival. Glossophobia, the fear of public speaking, frequently ranks higher than the fear of death. To understand why standing before a crowd is so objectively terrifying, we must examine our social history. For early ancestors, belonging to a tribe was essential. Being rejected meant isolation and certain death. When you stand on stage, your brain perceives a critical social trial. It fears that stumbling over words will cause a loss of status. Your body prepares for a social survival battle, even when giving a completely normal and standard office presentation. Agoraphobia is often misunderstood. Rather than just a fear of open spaces, it involves dreading situations where escape might be difficult during a panic attack. This leads people to avoid shopping malls or public transit, acting like an invisible cage that slowly shrinks their world. The fear usually begins after one unexpected panic attack in a public space. To prevent that terrifying feeling again, your brain labels more locations as unsafe. It becomes a desperate attempt to create a perfectly controlled environment where nothing unexpected ever happens. Trypanophobia is the intense fear of procedures involving needles. For roughly 10% of people, seeing a needle causes a unique psychological reaction. Unlike other phobias, this drops blood pressure suddenly, leading to fainting. This is your body playing dead when facing a perceived injury. Evolutionarily, a sudden pressure drop prevented excessive bleeding if wounded. However, in a modern clinic, it makes a simple flu shot feel like a deadly ordeal. This misplaced survival instinct is dangerous because it often leads individuals to avoid essential healthcare visits. Nyctophobia, the fear of the dark, is a childhood anxiety that often lingers well into adulthood. This isn't a fear of absence of light, but of what our minds imagine hiding inside of shadows. Because humans are visual creatures relying on eyes to navigate, darkness leaves us feeling vulnerable. In the dark, your brain fills empty spaces with imagined threats. A creaking floorboard sounds like a footstep. This hyper-awareness was vital for ancestors avoiding nocturnal predators. Even inside of modern homes, primal instincts scan the dark for hidden dangers. Aquaphobia is the persistent fear of water, especially the vastness of the ocean. Those with this phobia may feel intense anxiety just looking at a large lake. The fear is rooted in the reality that water remains an alien environment. We can't breathe underwater, and we're not fast swimmers. The ocean represents a massive, uncontrollable force that is mostly unexplored. Your brain realizes it lacks control over what lies beneath. This lack of visibility triggers a terrifying feeling of insignificance, reminding us that nature holds powerful forces. Aerophobia affects millions of travelers yearly, despite air travel being statistically safe. This phobia highlights how logic gets overruled by primitive instincts. Humans were never meant to fly 30,000 feet high, and our brains know this. When a plane hits turbulence, your inner ear feels a sudden drop and sends a falling signal into your brain. Even if the pilot offers reassurance, your internal alarm ignores statistics. It only knows that you're trapped really high above the ground, making even safe flights feel like completely unmanageable disasters. Hemophobia is the extreme fear of blood, often triggering a fainting spell rather than a standard flight response. For somebody with this phobia, seeing even one drop feels paralyzing. This reaction is closely tied to disgust sensitivity. Your brain categorizes blood as a biological hazard, signifying a fatal injury. When you spot it, your nervous system experiences a drastic shift. Fainting acts as an ancient defensive mechanism. By losing consciousness, your heart pumps less intensely, protecting the body while making you appear less threatening to potential nearby predators. Cynophobia is the fear of dogs, surprising many who consider them wonderful companions. This phobia typically stems from traumatic childhood experiences. If chased or bitten when young, your brain creates a permanent danger label for all canines. Dogs move quickly, have sharp teeth, and exhibit unpredictable body language. To a cynophobe, a wagging tail resembles a predator preparing to pounce. This specific fear proves extremely difficult because dogs are everywhere. A single event permanently reshapes perception, transforming a loyal companion into a source of constant, intense terror. Trypophobia describes the immense disgust triggered by patterns of small holes. Think of honeycombs or lotus seed pods. While not universally recognized medically, it remains a genuine experience for thousands. Researchers suspect that this is not a fear of holes, but a biological warning system. Many venomous animals possess skin patterns resembling these hole clusters. Furthermore, various infectious diseases cause similar dotted patterns on human skin. This creeping sensation is an evolutionary reaction designed to protect your physical health from anything appearing severely diseased or inherently dangerous. Misophonia, commonly known as the fear of germs, involves an intense dread of contamination. In modern history, we constantly hear about dangerous bacteria, making this phobia seem incredibly logical. However, for a misophobe, the fear feels constant and entirely overwhelming. You might wash your hands continuously or avoid touching any shared surface. This condition represents a protective instinct gone horribly wrong. The brain views the world as a terrifying zone of unseen enemies, highlighting a deep anxiety concerning the extreme daily fragility of the ordinary human body. Ophidophobia, the fear of snakes, remains deeply ingrained within the human psyche. Even those who have never encountered a snake feel sudden fear seeing one on television. Psychologists believe primates developed specialized vision specifically to spot snakes hiding in tall grass. For millions of years, snakes were primary predators. When you see that slithering motion, your brain recognizes it instantly, bypassing logical thoughts to trigger a fast reaction. This genetic memory ensures that we never become comfortable around creatures capable of ending our lives with a single bite. Ultimately, while our modern world has evolved at lightning speed, our minds are still playing by the rules of the savannah. This reminds us that our irrational fears are often just old survival programs waiting for an update.